Hi, 7th through 8th grade. We are covering another big topic this week. This is something you can even come back to and refer to in college. But we're talking about how to make a works cited page. Now, you might not even know what that is. Basically, a works cited page is a list of all of the books or articles, anything you read and use in your research paper, this paper that we have been brainstorming about topics and you've started reading about and taking notes. As you read, you want to keep a running list. Now, you cannot just list them however you want. There's a certain required way to list them. But the question is, who decides how to list them and how to organize them? Well, that is where I'm going to pause for a second and talk about one of my most important tips for writing class in high school, in college, in grad school, really any class. So I hope you listen to this tip. But the most important tip is right in front of you. Follow directions. In all the years I have taught writing or tutored writing, I've noticed that if a student can do this one thing, normally, almost every time, this will be an A student. Just simply following directions is something that a lot of modern students don't often do. I think there's a misunderstanding that writing is more like art, and that you can choose to do it however you want. The problem is that is a huge misconception. In fact, you need to look at this more as a game of instructions. How closely can you follow these instructions? I had students in the past that I was tutoring that would say, well, my teacher said to do it this way, but, and right there I knew why they were struggling in class. This is not any homework assignment from here forward is not an opportunity to be creative, to do your own spin on it. This is your duty to follow directions. I learned, speaking of following directions, I even learned more about this in grad school when I would have papers or assignments and I didn't quite understand them. And rather than trying to wing it, I would schedule an appointment with my teacher, sit in my teacher's office, and I would ask my questions. And do you know that sometimes they practically wrote my paper for me? I loved it because then I knew that I was definitely going to get a good grade because they were the ones who recommended the things I was doing. And then later, when I became a writing teacher, the students that came into my class and sat down and explicitly asked me and followed these directions, they showed that they were trying to do what was required of them. They were the ones who always did well. So I'm going to give you this huge tip before we keep going, because the next section is exactly this way. You're going to learn exactly how to do a works cited page, and you need to follow it down to the smallest detail. So next we're going to talk about style guides. What are they? Style guides are basically a set of rules that everyone agrees to follow. It's like the recipe for your paper. So there are different style guides, however, and for this class, we're going to use MLA. Stands for the Modern Language Association. Your teacher in college, grad school, will tell you which style guide they want you to use. We're going to talk about the most common ones, and then we're going to zoom in on MLA and talk about what are MLA's rules for works cited pages, okay? So I'm going to, at this point, pull up the internet. I already have MLA pulled up, but I'm just going to show you with a common Google search, common style guides, and you're going to see the ones that pop up first. There's the APA, the AP, Associated Press. I don't know why that's on there. American Psychological Association. The Associated Press. There's the Modern Language Association. Microsoft has its own style guide. This is a good opportunity to say that some big companies and even small companies will have their own style guides for their companies. In fact, my husband's church has their own style guide because they publish a lot every week, and so they have their own set of rules for the different documents they publish. I used to edit for the Dummies books. They had their own style guide. They used Chicago Manual as their main one. But here's another main one, Chicago Manual of Style. That's a big one. And then Turabian, which I don't see on here. But those are probably your main 3 or 4. I'm going to pull that up again. So you have I'm just going to scratch them down here. You have Chicago Manual Style. That's the one I use the most when I edit books for publication. You have Associated Press, AP Style, and you have Turabian, which I can't remember on the top of my head how to spell that, but Turabian. And there are several, but those are your main ones. These are associations that they have a group of editors, and they put out the rules for editing or publishing in their fields. There's also one, let's just keep going. So I'm going to go back to the website here, and let's look at the MLA main page. So whenever you're doing anything, I really recommend going to the ultimate source. So because we're talking about MLA, we're going to go to their website. Now, if you proceed, I recommend going to your library and trying to find a copy. There's an ebook version and there's a print copy version, which the 9th edition is, I think it's like $10. Let me look. It's not too bad. Here it is on Amazon. Yeah, it's about $10. Or the hardcover is more expensive. That's the one I have. And you could certainly get them used, I would guess. Yes, you can. It's good to always have the most recent edition. As you see, this has 9 editions. That's because language changes. And so every few years, they're going to put out a new edition. This is true for all style guides. But try to check one out at your library. You might even be able to check one out on Kindle or Hoopla through your library if you do Libby or any of those online libraries. So here is where you would find out how to cite a source. Now, citing sources means that when you're writing a paper, you're going to refer to facts, opinions, research of other people. And so within your paper, you're going to say, according to Dr. So-and-so. And of course, we're going to talk more about how to use quotations in another week. But this is a guide to how, at the end of your paper, you're going to have a list, like I said, of all of your resources. I'm going to pull up an example paper here. At the very end of this person's paper, here is his works cited page. All in MLA papers, all of them look exactly like this. Notice in the top right corner is the student's name, last name, and the page number. It's formatted exactly like this, an inch from the right, and then there's an inch indentation from the left. Notice all of his authors are listed by last name first. Bradfield, Bustos Rubilar, Cooper. This one doesn't have an author, but it's called Cost and Options. Crouch, Deep, Hoff, Holt, Homepage. This one also didn't have an author. Kramer, Leon, Na, Punch, Sappington. Sweet Nothing in My Ear. No author here, excuse me. This is a movie. And then Watson. So you see the sources in alphabetical order by author. And then you see several elements, and it looks like a lot of information, and it looks confusing maybe if you've never looked at a works cited page. But there is a special pattern to follow with a works cited page. So I'm going to go back to our quick guide. So here they talk through the elements. And each entry in the list of works cited is composed of facts common to most works. The MLA core elements. So they're always assembled in a specific order. They talk about containers, which is interesting. But the idea is that you might have an article within a magazine. Well, you need to cite the article information and the magazine information. So those are two different. You have the article fitting in the container of the magazine. They describe it when a source is being documented, forms part of a larger whole. The larger whole can be thought of as a container that holds the source. So a short story, for instance, might be contained in an anthology or a large book of short stories. So the short story is the source, but the anthology is the container. Same works for an article in a magazine. And the magazine is just one, what do you call it? Let's see, one volume. What do we call it? It's just part of a larger volume. So normally there's a whole series of magazines. And so you have to note every part of this. So they give you an option to practice. So this might be a good thing to pick up a book and to practice creating your template. So I'll push get started. So here it gives you an example. Look to the left. The author is Anne Goldman. The title of the source is Questions of Transport, reading Primo Levi reading Dante. But that article is in the Georgia Review, which is volume 64, number 1. The publication date for that article was spring 2010, and the exact location was on the pages 69 through 88. So this is how it would look. The author's last name, comma, author's first name, period. Always a period after the author. The article title will be in quotation marks, but there's also a period after the article title. Then notice the magazine is italicized, capitalized, and followed by a comma. The Georgia Review, comma. Volume 64, number 1. This is very interesting because volume is lowercase and it's abbreviated. VOL period 64, comma. And then number is also abbreviated and lowercase with a period and a 1 followed by a comma. You do not mix these up. It's not number 1, volume 64. It has to go in this order. And then spring 2010 is next, although some magazines do more than just a fall, winter, spring, summer edition. So in those cases, you wouldn't list spring 2010. You would just list whatever they have on that edition. And then a comma followed by PP. PP is when you have more than one page. If it was just page 69, it would be 1P. So 2 Ps, PP, period, 69 through 88, period. Also, I'm just going to highlight this. This hyphen is actually called an N dash. N as in the word, let's see, nice or nickel. And EN because it's the width of an N. There's all different kinds of dashes and hyphens, and that is the one you use. Notice this one is very short. That's a hyphen. And this is wider. It's an N dash. So if you don't know how to do that, you can Google N dash, EN space dash. All right. So you can scroll through here on the website and look at different examples. Now I'm going to go back to the example essay they have here. And let's see how this translates. So this is, if you notice, you have the author's last name, comma, the author's first name, and then his middle initial, followed by a period. You only need one period, even if you're using an initial. Then you have quotation marks and the entire title. You follow capitalization rules for titles. So we don't capitalize words like a, an, and the, or conjunctions like and, but, or, nor. And we don't capitalize small prepositions like of and in. But all the other words are capitalized. The period is inside the quotation marks. Then we have the italicized name of the Journal of Bioethical Inquiry, or if it's a magazine. And then a comma, the volume and number, lowercase. And then we have the date that it was published, which we didn't have in the other one. And notice that the day comes before the month and the year, and the month is abbreviated. All the months are abbreviated except for July, June, and April, I believe. Then we have our page numbers again. And then in this case, we also have a website. This is the name of the website, and then the HTTPS : with all these weird slashes is the exact address of this website. You would find it by clicking up here. So if you look at the top of the page right now, it says D1 OEMX QAU, etc. That is the name of the website. If I click on it, I can see the exact address. HTTPS : / etc. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that is the exact address, whereas this is just the website. Okay, and then the whole entry ends with a period at the end. So why do we do it this way? Well, this is the way that we write a paper in MLA format, and this is the way we cite. This particular skill is one of the most difficult skills for students to follow. But if you are attentive to details and you follow instructions, that makes people, when they pick up your paper, think, I think they probably did a good job on their research too, because they know how to cite in MLA and follow instructions. So I hope all I want you to do this week for your homework, I know this was a long video and maybe a very boring video, and I'm sorry about that, but it's a very important one. So your homework this week is simply to take your sources and cite them. Cite your MLA sources and create your own, I'm going to call it a working works cited page. A working works cited page means it's not done. But go ahead and list them, try to get them in order, try to follow the format. Use the MLA page as your helper. Look at the examples of the bibliographies they provide, the works cited pages they provide. That will be a huge help. But your biggest help will be to open an MLA handbook and look inside and find how to cite a book, how to cite an article, how to cite a web page. That is all on their all in their book. But again, you have a lot here online you can use to help with that. So have a great day, and I will see you next week.